Okay, so have you ever like sat down with your coffee, ready to be productive,
Mm.
and then suddenly you're like 3 hours deep in Wikipedia
Yeah.
learning about, I don't know, the history of like the rubber duck or something?
Yeah,
It's
straight
like,
up.
how is this even real life, right?
Yeah.
But seriously, though, in this world of like endless notifications and like TikToks and everything, it's like our attention spans are under attack.
Constantly.
Yeah, constantly. So today we're doing a deep dive into Chris Bailey's Hyperfocus.
Okay.
And this book's awesome because it doesn't just tell us to focus harder. It
Right.
actually gives us like a game plan for understanding and mastering our attention.
What I really liked about Bailey's approach is that he doesn't just like give generic productivity hacks.
Right?
He digs into the science behind attention,
Yeah, totally.
which is so important if you want to make lasting changes.
Absolutely. And one of the things that really struck me was his idea of attention units.
Hmm.
Like, imagine your focus is a finite resource, like a battery that you kind of recharge overnight.
Yeah.
And everything we do, from like answering emails to those rubber duck deep dives, it all drains that battery.
Yeah. And just like our phones die by the end of the day if we're glued to them, our attention can totally fizzle out by the end of the day if we don't pay attention to how we use it.
That's so true.
And so Bailey breaks down attention into 4 types.
Okay.
There's intense focus, which is like what we usually think of as hyperfocus.
Right.
Then there's creative and reflective thinking.
Okay.
There's automatic attention, which is like for your everyday routines.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, there's distracted attention.
Right. It's like not enough to just want to focus. We have to be intentional about what kind of focus we're using and when.
Exactly.
And this is where Bailey's 2 main modes of focus come in: hyperfocus and scatterfocus.
Yeah.
But I feel like when people hear scatterfocus, they think, oh, so just zoning out.
Right.
But it's not just zoning out, right?
Yeah, it's actually way more interesting than just zoning out.
Okay, so tell me more about it.
Okay, so we're often told to just buckle down and power through things.
Mm-hmm.
But Bailey actually argues that allowing time for scatter focus is super important,
Okay.
especially for creative problem solving.
Interesting.
It's like you're giving your brain the space to make connections that it wouldn't have made otherwise.
It's like those aha moments you have in the shower or when you're out for a run. Like you're not actively trying to solve a problem, but your brain is just kind of like doing its thing in the background.
Exactly. And Bailey actually even talks about how different types of scatter focus activities can be helpful for our creativity in different ways.
Oh, interesting. Like what?
So like going for a walk can be really good when you're feeling stuck.
Mm-hmm.
It's like your subconscious gets to like stretch its legs and come back with fresh ideas.
Okay, I like that. Yeah.
And then listening to music can be really stimulating for some people, almost like it's priming that creative pump.
So it's about being intentional with your attention, even when you are letting your mind wander.
Precisely.
Okay, that makes sense. So that's scatter focus. Let's talk about its more intense counterpart, hyperfocus. What is that all about, and how do we actually make it happen, especially when our brains feel more like scattered confetti than like laser beam?
Well, you know those attention units that we talked about?
Yeah.
Hyperfocus is like using those strategically, aiming them like a laser pointer at a specific task.
And Bailey talks a lot about setting a clear intention before even beginning, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
before I even like open my laptop or pick up my paintbrush, I need to know exactly what I want to accomplish.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's about giving your brain a target to focus on
Right.
and then minimizing those distractions
Okay, let's be real. That's where things get tricky.
for everyone.
Yeah. My phone is like this like black hole of distraction.
We all have our kryptonite.
Right.
And
Ah.
I think the first step is acknowledging it, right? So what are your personal triggers? Is it social media? Is it email notifications? Is it that stack of unread books judging you from the corner?
Oh, the unread books. Don't even get me started.
So it's about being honest with yourself about what actually pulls you away from a task.
Mm-hmm.
Once you know your triggers, you can start putting strategies in place to like combat them.
Okay, so things like those app blockers everyone's talking about, or maybe just like turning my phone off and putting it in a drawer.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's about creating an environment that supports your intention to hyperfocus.
And that includes our physical environment too, right? Because I don't know about you, but if my workspace is a disaster zone, my brain feels like a disaster zone.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Clutter is like a visual distraction
Right.
competing for those attention units. And even things like temperature and lighting can make a huge difference.
So before we even get to the actual work, we need to like set the stage for success.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like preparing a delicious meal,
Right.
right? You wouldn't just throw all the ingredients in a pot without thinking about it, right?
Right.
You'd gather your tools, you'd chop your vegetables, maybe you'd light a candle to set the mood.
Right.
It's the same thing with hyperfocus.
I like that analogy.
Yeah. It's about creating the optimal conditions for your brain to thrive.
Okay, so we've got our hyperfocus strategies. We've decluttered our desks and like banished our phones to another dimension.
Right.
Now what? So we've laid the groundwork, but how do we actually put these hyperfocus muscles to work?
So this is where Bailey's practical strategies really come in handy.
Okay.
One of the simplest but most effective is planning your day with intention.
Wait, hold on. Before you go on about like color-coded calendars,
Right.
because honestly, that just stresses me out.
Right.
We're not talking about like planning every minute of every day.
Oh, no, not at all.
Okay, good.
It's not about micromanaging. It's more about just like setting a clear intention for the day
Okay.
before you even look at your inbox or open Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
Take a few minutes, literally just 5 minutes,
Yeah.
to identify your top 2 or 3 must-do tasks.
Okay.
Those are your hyper-focused priorities.
So it's like picking the MVPs of my to-do list.
Exactly.
Okay.
The tasks that absolutely have to get done today.
Gotcha.
And here's the key. You need to schedule dedicated time blocks for them.
Like actually block out the time in my calendar.
Yes, just like you would for a meeting.
Okay.
It could be like a 2-hour chunk in the morning when you're feeling fresh.
Hmm.
Or maybe like a shorter block after lunch.
I see where you're going with this. It's about being proactive with my attention.
Yes.
Instead of letting all those urgent but not important things hijack my day.
Exactly.
Because we've all had those days, right?
Yes.
Where it's 5 p.m. and you're like, wait, what did I even do today?
It happens to everyone.
Yeah, but if we actually block out that time,
Right.
then those things will actually get done.
Exactly.
Speaking of getting things done, Bailey also talks about this thing called the Pomodoro technique.
Yes.
I've heard of it, but honestly, it just sounds kind of gimmicky to me. Does a timer really make that much of a difference?
You'd be surprised.
Okay.
It's really simple, but it's surprisingly effective.
Okay.
Basically, you set a timer for 25 minutes of focused work on one task.
One single task.
Just one. No distractions, no multitasking.
Okay.
When the timer goes off, you take a 5-minute break.
Okay.
And then you repeat that cycle 4 times.
Mm-hmm.
Then you take a longer break, like 15 or 20 minutes.
So it's like interval training, but for your brain?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're working in those short bursts of focus and then giving yourself those little breaks.
Okay.
And those breaks are super important.
Right. It's not about checking your phone.
No, not at all. It's about actually recharging.
Yeah. Go for a walk. Listen to music.
Exactly.
Meditate, whatever.
Yes.
That makes sense. Sometimes I get so caught up in a task that I forget to take breaks,
Mm-hmm.
and then I just hit a wall,
Yeah, and then you're done.
and I'm useless.
Right.
So this technique kind of helps you build those breaks in so you don't get to that point of burnout. Okay, I can get behind that.
Yeah.
What about those pesky distractions, though?
Yes.
We talked about them earlier. We know what they are. We've banished our phones to another dimension,
Right?
but they're sneaky. Any other tips for keeping them away?
One technique I like to recommend is keeping a distraction log.
A distraction log.
Yes. For like a day or two, just keep track.
So like a food journal, but for my distraction.
Exactly. Every
Okay.
time you get distracted, just jot it down.
Okay.
What was the distraction?
Mm-hmm.
How long did it last? What caused it?
Okay.
Was it something external, like a notification,
Mm-hmm.
or internal, like you were bored or feeling stuck?
That sounds kind of terrifying. I don't know if I want to interact in this.
It can be eye-opening,
Okay.
but the great thing is it makes you aware of those unconscious habits.
Right.
It helps you see the patterns in your behavior so you can actually start to change.
So let's say I've identified my patterns.
Okay.
I'm definitely a sucker for an Instagram rabbit hole.
Right.
What do I do then?
Well, first you have the awareness, which is huge.
Okay.
And then it's about putting strategies in place to minimize those distractions.
Okay.
And it's not about avoiding technology completely.
Right.
It's about treating boundaries.
So maybe I only check social media at a certain time of day,
Exactly.
so I'm not just constantly getting sucked in.
Right. Or using those app blockers
Yeah.
to stop you from scrolling.
Out of sight, out of mind. Right.
Precisely.
Okay.
You're making those tiny decisions that support your focus
Yeah.
rather than fighting against yourself all the time.
So it really is all about intentionality.
Exactly. It's about being aware of where your attention is
Yeah.
and making choices that support your goals.
Okay. So we talked about planning our day, taming distractions, even creating that physical space for focus. Anything else listeners can do to kind of up their attention game? So we've covered a lot, but is there anything else people can do to get the most out of their attention?
One more thing from Bailey that I found really useful is something called energy alignment.
Okay, what's that?
So it's basically the idea of paying attention to your natural energy levels throughout the day
Okay.
and scheduling your tasks accordingly.
So instead of just making a to-do list and powering through, I should be thinking about when I'm actually best equipped to work on certain things.
Exactly. We all have those peak times when our focus is like super sharp,
Right.
and then times when our energy just dips and we're way more likely to get distracted.
Yeah, for sure.
And the key is to work with those natural rhythms instead of against them.
So like I'm a morning person. If I tried to work on something super complicated in the afternoon, it would be a nightmare.
Exactly.
It's like trying to run through mud.
Yes. So use that morning energy for those tough tasks,
Okay.
the ones that really need your brain power,
Yeah.
and then save those easier tasks for later in the day.
That makes so much sense. I always feel guilty if I'm not being productive all day long.
Yeah, you don't have to be on all the time.
Okay, good to know.
It's about working smarter, not harder.
This has been awesome, but I imagine it could feel overwhelming to actually try to do all of this.
Oh, of course.
Like, where do we even begin?
Start small. Don't try to change everything at once.
Okay.
Pick one or two things that you connect with
Hmm.
and just focus on those. Maybe you try the Pomodoro technique or planning your day each morning.
Right.
Just be patient and celebrate the small wins.
I think that's such an important point. This isn't about never getting distracted. It's
Right.
about working with our brains, not against them.
Exactly. And it
Yeah.
takes time. Like any skill, mastering your attention takes practice.
That's true.
So be kind to yourself. Enjoy the journey. Even small changes can make a huge difference.
So if you're feeling inspired, pick one thing from this episode and try it out today.
Yes.
Maybe it's setting an intention for your day. Maybe it's trying the Pomodoro technique. Maybe it's just taking a break to go for a walk when your brain needs it.
What matters is finding what works for you.
It's about taking control of our attention and unlocking our focus. Until next time.